Welcome to the Politicrat. I am Omar Moore. It is Tuesday, September the 1st, 2020.
And now we have to stand against violence in every form it takes. Violence we've seen again and again and again of unwarranted police shooting, excessive force, 7 bullets in the back of Jacob Blake, knee on the neck of George Floyd, killing of Breonna Taylor in her own apartment, violence of extremists and opportunists, the senseless violence of looting and burning and destruction of property. I want to make it absolutely clear, something very clear about all of this. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Violence will not bring change. It'll only bring destruction. It's wrong in every way. It divides instead of unites. Destroys businesses, only hurts the working families that serve the community. It makes things worse across the board, not better. No, it's not what Dr. King or John Lewis taught, and it must end. Fires are burning, and we have a president who fans the flames rather than fighting the flames. But we must not burn. We have to build. This president long ago forfeited any moral leadership in this country. He can't stop the violence because for years he's fomented it.
That was Vice President Joe Biden speaking in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania yesterday as he returned to the campaign trail. He gave a speech about healing the country, fixing the economy, safeguarding and preserving Social Security, and the need for racial justice and a new policing. That was the speech in full, pretty much. But I'll be playing that speech and certainly excerpts from it in this edition of the Politicrat, plus some very important words from Reverend Howard John Wesley. That and more coming up next.
The common thread, the incumbent president who makes things worse, not better. An incumbent president who sows chaos rather than providing order. An incumbent president who fails in the basic duty of the job, which is to advance the truth that all of us know, that we're all born with the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's right, all of us. The moms and dads in Scranton, where I grew up, who have worked and scraped for everything they've ever gotten in life. The auto worker in Michigan, who still makes the best automobile in the world. The single mom in Ohio working 3 jobs just to stay afloat, who'll do anything for her child. Retired veteran in Florida who gave everything he had to this country and now just wants us to honor the promises made to him. The Lord & Taylor salesperson who just lost their job. A store closing after 194 years in business. Nurses and doctors in Wisconsin who've seen so much sickness, so much death in the past 6 months. And they wonder how much more can they take? But still, they muster up the courage to take care of those patients in this pandemic while risking their own lives.
That was Joe Biden. And yesterday he gave a speech in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'll be playing some more of that speech later on. But I hope that you're well on this Tuesday, and here we are, 63 days now. 63 days until the November 3rd general election here in the United States. The anxiety has certainly ratcheted up for many millions of people. Not just because that date of November 3rd is coming up very quickly as we start a brand new month here, but also because of the situation surrounding what is down the road in that election. You have a pandemic that continues to kill people in the United States and across the world. You have an economic situation in the United States that is dire. Another 1 million plus people last week filed for first-time unemployment benefits. The job rate has sunk and the jobless rate has gone way up. The GDP of the country is below by far what it should be or what Donald Trump promised. And at least 35 to 40 million people are out of work at this moment. Small businesses have taken a beating. And despite the best efforts of some of the governors to try to get people back into the economy flow in terms of buying and contributing to the economy, people are not going to decide to want to do that. They're just not going to, given what we've got in front of us. We have a pandemic that has left a lot of people scared to death. Some of you may know someone who has coronavirus. You may have it yourself. You may have been or may still be going through those very difficult and painful challenges. You may know someone who has lost their lives from this virus or from any other medical situation. You may know someone else who has lost their lives, or another person who knows someone. This virus has now taken the lives of over 187,000 people. 187,000 human beings in this country have died from coronavirus. And Donald Trump has done nothing to reduce that death toll or arrest it or slow it down. He's done nothing throughout this whole thing. Can I just remind you of the posture that he's taken even early on?
The coronavirus.
This is their new hoax.
We have it totally under control. It's one person coming in from China. One day it's like a miracle, it will disappear. When you have 15 people, and within a couple of days it's going to be down to close to zero, we really think we've done a great job in keeping it down to a minimum.
I like this stuff. I really get it. People are surprised if I understand it.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
That was an ad from Priorities USA. Now that ad was released earlier this year. And this ad was a really good example of someone in the White House who has no idea, doesn't care, thinks he knows everything, and knows absolutely nothing. You've got authors making a mint off of this guy because he is such a corrosive figure to the country. But I think the big mistake that the news media has made, although it's not a mistake for them because they see money coming out of this and ratings opportunities and advertising dollars coming out of this, is to cover Donald Trump as if he is still a reality TV show star. And the truth of the matter is that he has spent these last 3.5 years in the White House behaving like that. And the media is covering him that way instead of covering the issues that matter. In fact, before Donald Trump ever got anywhere near a White House, the news media just had not been covering the issues that matter to you and me. The issues of Social Security, the issues of the environment, the issues of better schools, the issues of racial justice, the issues of a woman's right to choose, the issues of entrepreneurship, the issues of a stronger education system that fortifies facilities and treats everybody with respect and acknowledges and respects the humanity of every single child. The issues of dealing with foreign policy, the issues of dealing with healthcare, the issues of dealing with this virus. Joe Biden talked about this in his speech, and when I looked at some of the clips of this speech being played back, surprise, surprise, the media was covering this as well. Joe Biden attacked Donald Trump's this and did that, and he did the other. And none of these clips showed Joe Biden talking about the economy and what he was going to do to fix it. None of these clips showed Joe Biden talking about how bad this economy is. None of the clips showed Joe Biden talking about Donald Trump wanting to take away Social Security. These are issues that affect you and I. These are issues that affect the people. But the news media has never really been interested, at least for the last 25 plus years or so, 30 years or so, has never really been interested in what the average person thinks or what the average person's issues are. Because the media, of course, caters to a very small few. It's controlled by the very rich. So what the very rich are going to do is, if they're in control of the news media, are going to be looking at the world through a very narrow view. Stock market, investors, and they're going to be looking at those kinds of things, and they're going to talk about the stock market. And the stock market's not really important at all to the average person. What is important to the average person is GDP, is the actual unemployment rate, is the amount of jobs, the jobs report. Is housing, how much housing is being done, what's the housing market looking like, what's the number of homes that have been built. These are the kinds of things that the average person needs to know more about, because those are the kinds of things that affects them every day, and it affects their economic health. But you have to watch shows like, say, CNN Finance or CNN Business or whatever it's called. CNBC does this too, but I think they just get into overdrive and get into a lot of things that really, while important, they still tip toward investors. And when people say investor, when I say it, and what people mean is people who are moving the financial markets on Wall Street with hundreds of millions of dollars in their trading of shares and stocks. I mean, that is what investors are. They're not the average person. Investors are people who are big money market people. They are the ones who are throwing in 20 million shares for this stock, 10 million shares for that stock, 10,000 shares of whatever that other stock is. I mean, that's what the media means when it talks about investors. But homes built, construction, the prices of housing, the housing market, GDP, jobs created, jobs lost, unemployment rates. Those are the critical things that are the heart of the economy and really give you a picture of what the true economic health of the country is. unfortunately, that is not really focused on. And unless you do watch a more niche channel like CNBC, which again tilts much more to investors rather than to the everyday person, because that's, again, the lens of those who own media networks, the lens of these big business folks is going to be about big business. It's not going to be about everyday families. So this is what needs to be talked about. And Joe Biden touched on this in his speech yesterday. But that hardly got any coverage. I mean, it got coverage. And the clips that were played were the clips of him saying, "Do I look like a..." And I played the clip earlier. "Do I look like a radical socialist? Do I look, And that's fine and good. We know that Joe Biden does not have a record of being anywhere near the left. I mean, anybody who knows his record, and few people really, really do, except for the politically astute among us and those in the media, and certainly those on Capitol Hill. And again, the students of politics and history, of which there are many, they are very clear on what Joe Biden's legislative record has been over the last 50 years. But most people have no idea what his legislative record is. The Democratic National Convention did not take any pains to go over it because they wanted to make this very clear picture of this guy is a family man, he's decent, he's this, he's that, and that's all well and good, and I thought it was effective and it was good. But now we are into the campaign. The end of the conventions really marks the start of the presidential campaign. This is a new phase now. And Joe Biden was talking about this yesterday, Social Security, which would be destroyed if Donald Trump's plan were to succeed, i.e., if he were to get another 4-year term. Social Security would be gone within a year and a half to 2 years. Disability payments will be gone within the next year, if he gets into power. These are very serious things when you, and I've talked about this before, but when you retire, because I've talked about Social Security before on this podcast, when you retire, you hope to have a little something, and it gets smaller and smaller because the Republicans have taken an axe to Social Security and have tried to whittle away at it ever since 1935 when it was passed by the Democratic President FDR. And when you hear Joe Biden's speech, which I will play parts of, if not all of, quite frankly, because I think that it's important to hear the whole 23-minute speech. And I will break in the middle of it so that I can chop it in half and talk about a couple of the things he says. But it's very important, Social Security. And the Republicans have been taking an axe to it now for 85 years. They have whittled away, chipped away around the edges, just like they've done with the Voting Rights Act. And you saw what happened in the Supreme Court in 2013 with that. And so Social Security is a very important thing. We're all going to get older. And knock on wood, don't think you can hear me knocking on it, but knock on wood, we will all get to an age where we can get to enjoy Social Security. Now, it's not the kind of Social Security it was in the 1960s or 70s, but it is a little bit of a something, and you can't live off Social Security alone. But it is once upon a time you used to be able to, as I said. It's not like in the 60s and in the 70s where people were doing pretty well off of Social Security. You could pretty much live off of it back in the day. But we're not in that day anymore. But the point is that Social Security needs to be strengthened, not destroyed, not tinkered with, not eviscerated. And under Donald Trump, if you get another 4 years of him, he will do so. His budget calls for at least between 45 and $85 billion of cuts to Social Security, disability, and Medicare. I mean, even more. I mean, his budget is very clear about this for fiscal year 2021. Those are the kinds of issues the news media has not really covered. The only person I've heard talk about this was Lawrence O'Donnell last week, and I played the clip of him speaking about it, the audio of it, when he was on MSNBC last week during the Republican National Convention. And it was after one of the nights had come to an end, and he said, I think it was night number 3, and he said, look, Social Security, because there had been a new report, and Joe Biden talks about it, an actuary that says Social Security under this guy is going to completely disappear within a year or two. If not 3 at the max. But the point is that that's something that the American public needs to be told. And most of us do not know that. We are completely unaware of it. Who has time to sit down there and read a budget plan? You're busy getting yourself together to get to work, whether you are working from home, whether you are working from a small business, whether you are working at a department store or a grocery store. Well, department stores now, probably, there's not too many of them in operation. I'm sure there's some in some states. I know here in California, they're trying to return business. But for those of you who do have to go and venture into an office to work, you're too busy getting ready for work. You're too busy getting your day together. You're too busy trying to put food on the table for your kids. You're too busy trying to figure out where the next rent payment's coming from as we start a brand new month. There's lots of people out here, and these are the critical issues. Food insecurity, people standing on food lines. Joe Biden did not talk about that in his speech, but I dare say that he will start to do that, and he must. Because while Donald Trump trumpets and talks about law and order, Joe Biden should be countering with chaos and disorder. Chaos and disorder. That should be the Joe Biden mantra about Donald Trump. This isn't law and order. It's lawlessness and disorder. It's chaos and disorder. And that's the only thing Donald Trump has, which he did allude to, by the way, in this speech. But these important issues, they've got millions of people in this country, millions of Americans, on food lines. They are parked in their cars, and those car lines waiting for food, for boxes of food for their families, stretches back miles. In Pennsylvania, particularly, in New York as well, and all over the country, which I think is why Joe Biden, who's from Pennsylvania, from Scranton, Pennsylvania, has been spending a lot of time in Pennsylvania. And I get it. He's not really done a lot of campaigning yet, but he's going to now. You're going to start to see him move around the country as the science dictates. And he will be out on the trail. That you have in Pennsylvania and all these states, whether they're key states or not. I don't like the term swing states, but look, that's just me. I just call them key states. And I think every state is a key state. But my whole point is that no one in the media is talking about, well, I mean, some people are, food insecurity. And those clips in a speech don't get played. And what Joe Biden, I think, should be doing, and will eventually do, I think, and do it pretty soon, is talk about millions of Americans hurting. And he did talk about it in the speech, but be even more specific. Food lines. You've got millions of people in this country on lines waiting for food. And it didn't have to be like this. You've got millions of people bombarding unemployment offices. You see the video of it. You saw it earlier in the year. At least the media showed it. All of these individuals around the country looking for work, lined up. Florida, Texas, California, in the Midwest, all over the country. So issues are the thing. Next, I'm going to play you Joe Biden's speech. And it's a speech that you should hear, because even though it didn't get, I think, the playback that it should have got, certainly not the sections that you heard probably or saw, you need to see, or at least hear in this case, the kinds of things he said that did not make it to television screens near you. That's coming up next.
In the recent days, we've had a lot of talk about who's going where and how I've decided to come to Pittsburgh to talk a little bit about what's going on right now. In the early days of World War II, Franklin Roosevelt told the country, and I quote, "The news is going to get worse and worse before it gets better and better. And the American people deserve to have it straight from the shoulder." Straight from the shoulder. The job of a president is to tell it straight from the shoulder. Tell the truth, to be candid, to face facts, to lead, not to incite. That's why I'm speaking to you today. The incumbent president is incapable of telling us the truth, incapable of facing the facts, and incapable of healing. He doesn't want to shed light. He wants to generate heat, and he's stoking violence in our cities. You know, this is a tragic fact of the matter, that about his perilous hour, that how he's dealing with this perilous hour in our nation. And now we have to stand against violence in every form it takes. Violence we've seen again and again and again, of unwarranted police shooting, excessive force, 7 bullets in the back of Jacob Blake, knee on the neck of George Floyd, killing of Breonna Taylor in her own apartment, violence of extremists and opportunists, the senseless violence of looting and burning and destruction of property. I want to make it absolutely clear, something very clear about all of this. Rioting is not protesting. Looting is not protesting. Setting fires is not protesting. None of this is protesting. It's lawlessness, plain and simple. And those who do it should be prosecuted. Violence will not bring change. It'll only bring destruction. It's wrong in every way. It divides instead of unites. Destroys businesses, only hurts the working families that serve the community. It makes things worse across the board, not better. No, it's not what Dr. King or John Lewis taught, and it must end. Fires are burning, and we have a president who fans the flames rather than fighting the flames. But we must not burn. We have to build. This president long ago forfeited any moral leadership in this country. He can't stop the violence because for years he's fomented it. You know, he may believe mouthing the words law and order makes him strong, but his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is. Does anyone believe there'll be less violence in America if Donald Trump is reelected? We need justice in America. We need safety in America. We're facing multiple crises. Crises under Donald Trump have kept multiplying. COVID, economic devastation, unwarranted police violence, emboldened white nationalists, a reckoning on race, declining faith in the birth of the right American future. There's no reason why we can't just do so much more than we're doing. The common thread, the incumbent president who makes things worse, not better. An incumbent president who sows chaos rather than providing order. An incumbent president who fails in the basic duty of the job, which is to advance the truth that all of us know, that we're all born with the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's right, all of us. The moms and dads in Scranton, where I grew up, who have worked and scraped for everything they've ever gotten in life. The auto worker in Michigan who still makes the best automobile in the world. The single mom in Ohio working 3 jobs just to stay afloat, who'll do anything for her child. Retired veteran in Florida who gave everything he had to this country and now just wants us to honor the promises made to him. Lord & Taylor salesperson who just lost their job, a store closing after 194 years in business. Nurses and doctors in Wisconsin who've seen so much sickness, so much death in the past 6 months. And they wonder how much more can they take? But still they muster up the courage to take care of those patients in this pandemic while risking their own lives. Researchers in Minnesota who woke up this morning determined to find a breakthrough in treating cancer. And will do the same thing tomorrow and the day after because she'll never give up. White, black, Latino, Asian American, Native Americans, everybody. I'm in this campaign for you, no matter your color, no matter your zip code, no matter your politics. When I think of the presidency, I don't think about myself. It isn't about my brand. It's about you, the American people. We can do better, and we have to do better. And I promise you this, we will do better. You know, the road back begins now in this campaign. You know me. You know my heart. You know my story, my family story. Ask yourself, do I look like a radical socialist with a soft spot for rioters? Really? I want a safe America, safe from COVID, safe from crime and looting, safe from racially motivated violence, safe from bad cops. Let me be crystal clear, safe from 4 more years of Donald Trump. I look at this violence and I see lives and communities and the dreams of small businesses being destroyed and the opportunity for real progress on the issues of race and police reform and justice being put to the test. Donald Trump looks at this violence and he sees a political lifeline. Having failed to protect this nation from the virus that has killed more than 180,000 Americans so far, Trump posts an all-caps tweet screaming law and order to save his campaign. One of his closest political advisors in the White House doesn't even bother to speak in code. She just comes out and she says it. Quote, the more chaos, violence, the better it is for Trump's reelection. Just think about that. This is a sitting president of the United States of America. He's supposed to be protecting this country, but instead he's rooting for chaos and violence. The simple truth is, Donald Trump failed to protect America. So now, he's trying to scare America. Since Donald Trump and Mike Pence can't run on their record that has seen more American deaths to a virus, this virus, than the nation suffered in every war since Korea combined. Since they can't run on their economy that has seen more people lose their jobs than any time since the Great Depression. Since they can't run on the simple proposition of sending our children safely back to school. Since they have no agenda or vision for a second term. Trump and Pence are running on this, and I find it fascinating. Quote, you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America. And what's their proof? The violence we're seeing in Donald Trump's America. These are not images of some imagined Joe Biden America in the future. These are images of Donald Trump's America today. He keeps telling you, if only he was president, it wouldn't happen. If he was president, he keeps telling us that he was president, you'd feel safe. Well, he is president, whether he knows it or not. And it is happening. It's getting worse. And you know why? Because Donald Trump adds fuel to every fire. Because he refuses to even acknowledge that there is a racial justice problem in America. Because he won't stand up to any form of violence. He's got no problem with right-wing militia, white supremacists, and vigilantes with assault weapons, often better armed than the police, often in the middle of the violence at the protesters and aiming it there. And because tens of millions of Americans simply don't trust this president to respect their rights, to hear their concerns, or to protect them. It doesn't have to be this way. When President Obama and I were in the White House, we had to defend federal property. We did it. We didn't see it. You didn't see us whipping up fears around the deployment of secret federal troops. We just did our job, and the federal property was protected. When President Obama and I were in office, we didn't look at cities as Democratic or Republican run. These are American cities. But Trump doesn't see himself as president for all of America. Frankly, I believe if I were president today, the country would be safer and we'd be seeing a lot less violence. And here's why. I have said we must address the issue of racial injustice. I've personally spoken to George Floyd's family and to Jacob Blake's family. I know their pain, and so do you. I know the justice they seek, and so do you. They've told us none of this violence respects or honors George or Jacob. I believe we can bring these folks fighting for racial justice to the table. I've worked with police in this country for many years. I know most cops are good, decent people. I know how they risk their lives every time they put that shield on and go out the door. And I'm confident I can bring the police to the table as well. I'd make sure every mayor and governor had the support they needed from the federal government, but I wouldn't be looking to use the United States military against our own people. If I were president, my language would be less divisive. I'd be looking to lower the temperature in this country, not raise it. I'd be looking to unite the nation. But look, if Donald Trump wants to ask the question, who will keep you safer as president? Let's answer that question. First, some simple facts. When I was vice president, violent crime fell 15% in this country. We did it without chaos and disorder. And yes, we did it with Democratic mayors in most of the major cities in this country. The murder rate now is up 26% across the nation this year under Donald Trump. Do you really feel safer under Donald Trump? COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives, when you think about it, more lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years. More than 180,000 lives in just 6 months. An average of 1,000 people dying every day in the month of August. Do you really feel safer under Donald Trump?
Do you really feel safer under Donald Trump? That's the question. And I think if you are honest with yourself, the answer has got to be no. Part 2 of Joe Biden's speech coming up next. Joe Biden was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania yesterday. And for around 22, 23 minutes, he spoke about the nation and where it stands. And quite frankly, I think while Joe Biden's slogan, Build Back Better, is, I think, a good one, it needs to be more focused. And I would have the people run his campaign have a new slogan called A Stronger, Better America. That, I think, would be a good slogan. A stronger, better America. 4 words. A stronger, better America. In fact, I'm going to tweet that to Joe Biden, at Joe Biden. My Twitter handle is at the popcorn REEL. So follow me there. I'm also in various other places, but Twitter is where you will find me most often. I'm going to tweet that to Joe Biden, and I think you should too. New campaign slogan. A stronger, better America. I think that would be a slogan. Either that or a stronger, safer America, or a better, safer America. That, any one of those 3 slogan choices, I think would go down well. And that first part of that speech too, by the way, Joe Biden was talking in terms like FDR. He started out quoting from FDR. He talked about unifying. He is giving you a character speech and talking about values, talking about decency, talking about bringing people together, being a healer. And that's how Joe Biden actually ran in the primaries as well. Someone who had a steady hand and was clear and clear-eyed and had this view of the country. And what he was asking for during the primaries and what he was declaring is that he would steer the ship and keep it steady. And he's doing pretty much the same here in the first part of that speech. So Joe Biden is working on healing and unifying. That's what this speech is doing. And that's what he was doing in the speech yesterday, mentioning meeting with the families of George Floyd and Jacob Blake. And of course, Donald Trump never did meet with either of those families. At least not in person. I think he did have a conversation via telephone with the George Floyd family. I believe that did happen. I'm not 100% sure, but it was, I think, via telephone. Remember when he did have a conversation with LaDavid Johnson? Remember LaDavid Johnson, one of the U.S. Army reservists who was killed in Niger during an ambush? Do you remember that? Those 4 American reservists? The Republicans talked about Benghazi and these 4 people in Benghazi, these 4 Americans. And yet you didn't hear anything about them saying anything under Donald Trump because the Niger, with the Benghazi killings happened under President Obama. And they spent all this taxpayer money, millions of dollars, doing all these investigations, something like 20 investigations, or at least 5 different House investigations when the Republicans were controlling the House. They wasted your taxpayer money on doing endless investigations on whether Obama had something to do. Was he incompetent? Did he have something to do with this? And they found nothing in all 5 investigations. Nothing. And they wasted your taxpayer money knowing that there was no there. It was done to try to sully Hillary Clinton, who of course was running for president in 2016 and 2015. But they're not saying a word about these 4 or 5 or however many it was. I think it was 4 U.S. Army members, military personnel who were killed in Niger under Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, by the way, spoke with such disrespect to the widow, Maisha Johnson. This is back in 2007, I believe. 2017, rather, or 2018. I think it's 2017. With such disrespect, he spoke to her. Well, that's what he signed up for. He knew what he was getting into. He knew what he signed up for. That's what Donald Trump told. The widow, Maisha Johnson. And the reason why we know that is because Frederica Wilson, who is a congressional representative in in Texas. I forget which state, Florida or Texas. Oh gosh. One of the, I think it's Florida. She is still the representative of the district that Maisha Johnson lives in. And she was on the call as well. There was a speakerphone and she was on it with Maisha Johnson, the widow of the David Johnson. And Donald Trump, from the White House, spoke to her with such disrespect and disdain. That's the guy you have in the White House right now. The guy who refuses to do a thing when your daughter, your son, your cousin, your father, your mother, your sister or brother, your husband or wife has bounties placed on their heads by Vladimir Putin. There have been at least 26 U.S. military personnel killed by Taliban Afghan rebels who have had bounties. They all had bounties put on their heads by Vladimir Putin. And Donald Trump has done nothing about that. Nothing whatsoever. They have had multiple conversations via phone, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and never has Donald Trump ever brought up the issue about Putin putting bounties on the heads of your daughter, your son, your family member in general, or any person serving in the United States Army or any other rank, any other area of the armed forces. Never has he brought that up. That's treason. So there's that. Joe Biden spoke to that, by the way, in the speech. Here is now. Well, first of all, here is, let's get to this later. I'll get to that later. Here is part 2 of the speech from yesterday from Joe Biden.
Mr. Trump, you want to talk about fear? Do you know what people are afraid of in America? They're afraid they're going to get COVID. They're afraid they're going to get sick and die. And that is in no small part, it's because of you. We're now on track to more than 200,000 deaths in this country due to COVID. More than 100,000 seniors have lost their lives to the virus. More cops have died from COVID this year than have been killed on patrol. Nearly 1 in 6 small businesses is closed in this country today. Do you really feel safer under Trump? What about Trump's plan to destroy the Affordable Care Act? And with it, the protections for pre-existing conditions. It impacts more than 100 million Americans. Does that make you feel safer? Or how about Trump's plan to defund Social Security? The Social Security Administration's chief actuary just released a report saying that if a plan like the one Trump is proposing goes into effect, the Social Security Trust Fund would be, and I quote, permanently depleted by the middle of calendar year 2023, with no ability to pay benefits thereafter. Put it plainly, Trump's plan would wipe out Social Security, period. You feel safer and more secure now? The fear that reigns under this president doesn't stop at our shores. The Kremlin has put bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And instead of telling Vladimir Putin that there'll be no putting up with this, that there'll be a heavy price to pay, they dare touch an American soldier. This president doesn't even bring up the subject in his multiple phone calls with Putin. Been reported that Russian forces just attacked American troops in Syria, injuring our service members. Did you hear the president say a single word? Did he lift one finger? Never before has an American president played such a subservient role to a Russian leader. It's not only dangerous, it's humiliating and embarrassing for the rest of the world to see. It weakens us. Not even American troops can feel safer under Trump. Donald Trump's role as a bystander in his own presidency extends to the economic plan and pain. The plan he doesn't have and the pain being felt by millions of Americans. He said this week, and I quote, "You better vote for me or you're going to have the greatest depression you've ever seen." Does he not understand and see the tens of millions of people who've had to file for unemployment this year so far? The people who won't be able to make next month's rent payment? The people who lost wages while the cost of groceries have gone up dramatically? President Obama and I stopped the depression in 2009. We took a bad economy that was falling and turned it around. Trump took a good economy and drove it back into the ditch. Through his failure to get COVID under control, his failure to pull together the leaders in Congress, his failure to deliver real relief to working people, has made our country economic situation so much worse than it had to be. When we talk about safety and security, we should talk about basic security of being able to look your child in the eye and tell them everything's going to be okay. Don't worry, honey, we're not going to lose our home. We're going to be able to put food on the table. It's going to be okay. It's the job of a president. I've laid out an agenda for economic recovery that will restore a sense of security for working families. We won't just build things back the way they were before. We're going to build them back better with good paying jobs, building our nation's roads, bridges, solar arrays, windmills, with investments in our health care and child care workers so they get the pay and dignity they deserve while easing the financial burdens on millions of families. With a clean energy strategy that is a place for the energy workers right here in Western Pennsylvania. I am not banning fracking. Let me say that again. I am not banning fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me. This future, the future, that's what this is all about. You know, we hear Donald Trump's self-centered rants and riffs, but the voice of Americans should be heard. The one you should listen to is Julia Jackson, the mother of Jacob Blake. Hers is a voice of courage, character, and wisdom. And looking at the damage that has been done in her city, she said, quote, "The violence and destruction doesn't reflect my son or my family." These are the words of a mom, a mother, whose son had just been shot 7 times in front of his children, badly injured, paralyzed, perhaps permanently. And even as she seeks justice for her son, she's pleading for an end to the violence and for this nation to heal. She said she was praying for her son. Then she said something to me that surprised me. She said she was praying for all police officers. She said she was already been praying for America even before her son was shot. She's publicly asked all of us to examine our hearts. Citizens, elected officials, the police, all of us. And then she said this, quote, "We need healing. More than anything, that's what we need to do as a nation. We need to heal. The current president wants you to live in fear. He advertises himself as a figure of order. He isn't. And he's not been part of the solution thus far. He's part of the problem. The problem I, as president, will give you my all resolve to stop. I'll deal with the virus. I'll deal with the economic crisis. And I'll work to bring equality and opportunity to everyone. We've arrived at a moment in this campaign we all knew, including the press in front of me, knew we'd get to. The moment when Donald Trump would be so desperate he'd do anything to hold on to power. Donald Trump has been a toxic presence in our nation for 4 years, poisoning how we talk to one another, poisoning how we treat one another, poisoning the values this nation has always held dear, poisoning our very democracy. Now, in just a little over 60 days, we have a decision to make. Will we rid ourselves of this toxin? Or will we make a permanent part? We make it a permanent part of our nation's character. You know, as Americans, I'm confident we believe in honesty and decency, treating everyone with dignity and respect, giving everyone a fair shot, leaving no one behind, giving hate no safe harbor, and demonizing no one. We up to now always recognize there's something bigger than ourselves as we're about. Trump doesn't seem to believe in any of that. Look, I've said it before and I'll keep saying it. America's an idea. It's the most powerful idea in the history of the world. And I believe it beats in the hearts of the people of this country. All men and women are created equal. And they deserve to be treated equally. Trump has sought to remake this nation in his image. Selfish, angry, dark, and divisive. This is not who we are. At her best, America has always been. And if I have anything to do with it, will be again generous, confident, an optimistic nation, full of hope and resolve. Donald Trump is determined to instill fear in America. That's what his entire campaign for the presidency has come down to, fear. But I believe Americans are stronger than that. I believe we'll be guided by the words of Pope John Paul II, words drawn from the Scriptures. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Fear never builds the future, but hope does. And building the future is what America does, what we've always done. In fact, it's what we have done best and continue to do best. This is the United States of America. There's not a single thing beyond our capacity when we decide to do it together. So let's get together. I want to thank you all. May God bless you, and may God protect our troops.
Fear never builds the future, but hope does. And Joe Biden's absolutely correct. I think that speech was very good, and I wish that it had got the proper airtime. Now, obviously, it was aired live at the time, and actually there was a couple of technical things that happened. If you watch the speech online on Joe Biden's YouTube page, the first 2 minutes plus, you cannot hear because the audio is just completely not there at all. And Joe Biden speaking, so that was not good. I don't know what happened there, but CNN had it, and you can watch the whole thing on CNN's YouTube page. And in fact, when they aired it live, they had some technical glitches there too. But the point is that that was the speech. Joe Biden, again, appealing to the best in people. Aspirational, the better angels. Looking at the realities of the country and what must be done. Asking you to trust him. Asking you to believe in yourselves. That is someone who has leadership. Now, whether or not people agree with everything that Joe Biden said or done, nobody does, right? Nobody agrees with every single thing that someone's done. Nobody in this world agrees with every single thing that their spouse has done. right? So this idea that we've got to be perfectly in line with everything is just bullpucky, as Rachel Maddow would say. What we've got to do is continue to push Joe Biden. We give him our vote, but even in the process of doing that, before we give him our vote, we say, here are the issues. And we're going to commit to you. You have to commit to us. And there will be a steep price to pay if you do not, once we get you in. And we are going to be in touch with you regularly. And we're going to push. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And here's who you're going to be dealing with. And here's what we need to do. And this is what you must do. And here's this, and this. I mean, that's how it gets done. It does not get done by saying, well, this is a two-party system and I'm frustrated with both of these parties in this two-party system, so I'm going to pick up my ball and go home. Or I'm going to pick up my ball and go to vote for a third party. And I know people do that. People did that last time. People I know did that last time. And what did that bring us? What did that bring you? What did that bring us? Oh, but I'm over here feeling good that I voted for this third party nobody. Because it's all about me. I don't care about the country. I just care about my own privilege. So I'm going to vote third party because, you know, my state's going to be voting for this person anyway. I submit that kind of nonsense has got to stop. And I have said this over and over and over again. And I've said it at least a couple of times on this podcast. This write-in third party, or I'm not going to vote at all, is a vote for Donald Trump. Whether you like it or not, whether you care about it or not, whether you believe that or not, it is. Every vote that Joe Biden does not get is a vote for Donald Trump. In fact, it's really 2 votes for Donald Trump. Because there will be someone else voting for him. And you not voting for Joe Biden is a vote for Trump. So that's 2 votes that Donald Trump gets. I know you probably don't conceptualize that. But it is. Because that's 1 less vote for Joe Biden. And 1 less vote for Joe Biden is a vote for Donald Trump. Period. End of. I saw these conventions. There were other conventions over the weekend. The People's Convention, which I think was very good. There was also a convention called the Black People's Convention. I believe it was called that. But they're both on YouTube. What you can watch, I'd invite anybody to watch both of those. But this absurd notion, I mean, I liked what was coming out of the Black People's Convention. There were people talking about balancing what I just said earlier, about balancing the need to support someone who is certainly not aligned perfectly with your interests, but someone that you can push. And you've got to be able to vote for that person while continuing to push them and hold them accountable. Versus the other guy, Donald Trump, who is not going to listen to you. Heck, as I said, he doesn't listen to his closest advisors. He's not listening to the governor of Wisconsin or the mayor of Kenosha, Wisconsin. He's not doing that. They told him not to go to Kenosha today. And yet he went to Kenosha today. So this notion that Donald Trump is going to listen to you, it's not true. He hasn't even bothered to pick up a phone and talk to Jacob Blake's family. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he's already made a call to Kyle Rittenhouse and invited him to the White House. And his mother, his gun-toting mother, who the media doesn't talk about, who drove him there and back, and he murdered 2 people and shot the arm off another. And, just drive back across the state, over the state lines, back into Illinois. This guy, by the way, punched a young girl July, since we're in September, back in July. There's video of this on social media. I refused to watch it. He was in Kenosha in July, this Rittenhouse guy, this terrorist, this misogynist, this murderer. And he punched a young girl. The police knew exactly who this guy was. He'd been in their system in Kenosha before. Certainly had been known. Joe Biden is about bringing people together and being honest about the challenges. You've had someone in the White House the last 3.5 years who has lied over 24,000 times. And no, the ridiculous speech he gave last week at the RNC, it wasn't 20 lies. It was closer to 200. I counted. It was much more than 20 lies. I know that Daniel Dale on CNN, the fact checker, was saying, oh, the 20 lies. Well, and he did a good job rattling off and refuting these lies with facts. But there were many more. Donald Trump told I counted, close to 200 lies. Joe Biden is going to tell you straight up, and he talked about it in that speech. And I think the speech was very good. Talked about the issues, talked about Social Security, talked about Medicare, talked about employment, talked about the economy. It's at Depression era levels, this economy. And the three things I think matter most to people in this country right now are what's going to be done about the coronavirus, because clearly Donald Trump is politicizing it. He's got there's a $250 million contract with some PR agency dedicated for the next 2 months to blitz you with ads saying that coronavirus is pretty much gone and here's what you do. Let's move on. Seriously, no kidding. That was on CNN. I mean, I am not making that up. So he's more interested in spending $250,000 of taxpayer money, yours, to tell you that everything is okay, to spend money on ads to tell you everything is okay with coronavirus, when over 187,000 people have died in this country, and he's doing nothing about it. He's more interested in spending money, your taxpayer money, with an ad firm, a PR firm, to bamboozle you with lies, than he is spending money on dealing with this virus and getting stronger testing, more effective testing and tracing and contacting and policy. This is all about him. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about those 187,000 families who have lost somebody. He doesn't care about you. And for some people, that's fine, But for the vast majority of us, we have some semblance of humanity. And I know some people are completely numbed to these numbers of people dying, but these are human beings, which is why I'm glad that there are some people in the corporate news media who are taking the chance and taking the time to reflect on those who have passed. And I think that's very important to remind people that this pandemic is still on, still going on, still killing 1,000 people a day in this country. And we are by far the world's leader in people dying from this virus. It's not even close. Character is on the ballot, but a woman's right to choose is on the ballot as well. And this is the character, by the way, of Donald Trump. This was from Saturday when he was down in Lake Charles in Louisiana touring hurricane-ravaged areas of that particular part of the state. Listen to this.
Okay, give it to me. Yeah, I'll give it to my guy.
Mr. President, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
This is great.
Yeah, let me have a pen. Hey, could I have a pen?
Come on,
Johnny?
Andrew.
Give me a
Come
few
on.
bucks.
Come on.
Here, come on over here. He looks like a good man. What's his name?
Sheriff.
Come here. Come here, pal. Let's get over here. I want a little power.
We got to just keep on. Yeah. President asked for it.
I want them over here. These are the guys. Here, sell this tonight on eBay. You get 10,000.
If you will, just try to keep the distance. Okay. Just put your mask on for me, guys.
Who's going to get this one? Sell it tonight on eBay, 10,000.
Trump Town, USA, big name, Cameron Parish.
Thank you. Thank you, fellas. We okay? Let's go, Steve.
Cameron is the parish that delivered you the highest percentage of any parish. or
Delivered
county in
me?
the country.
Oh, that's
Sheriff's right there.
which is the sheriff?
The sheriff right over here. This one right over here, yeah.
Come on over. So we're okay? Everything?
Sheriff.
People are good? Give me a piece of paper. Give me a...
Sheriff.
You have a tag?
Sheriff.
Give me a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Mike, how are you, man?
So you'll be okay, right? Won't be pleasant.
Won't be pleasant.
You'll get it back, yeah.
Any parish.
No,
Get a mask. Put it on, guys.
if I put your name down, it loses a lot of value. So just sell it tonight on eBay. Give me another one, John.
You can sell it on eBay and make $10,000. This is him. That's him. That was him signing. And what you heard there, oh, I want some power. Ugh. And if you watch the video of that, he looks like a drunken sailor. I know he doesn't drink alcohol, but he looks like a drunken sailor. Give me some power. I want some power. He's sitting at a desk, and you have officials from the area of Lake Charles giving him, I guess, a pen or giving him paper or something to write on, and he's writing on it and he's autographing it. And you heard him say, well, you know, if I put your name on it, it will lose its value. Sell it on eBay tonight, $10,000. This guy is not interested in leading at all. He never has been. It's like what Rick Wilson, the Republican operative, I guess he's no longer a Republican, certainly not in this party, once wrote in a book where he wrote, and the title is, Everything Trump Touches Dies. I mean, that is the title of his book. I think everything Donald Trump touches or everything Trump touches dies. And it's true. He has desecrated the office. And if you want to continue to see that kind of desecration, then you know who to vote for. If you want to continue to see the violence in the streets, then you know who to vote for. But Joe Biden is someone who will listen. At least, at the very least, he can be pushed. There are progressive groups who have already pushed him. He added things that Bernie Sanders did in his campaign. He invoked FDR. I wish Bernie had done that more in the primaries. He only did it when it was too late. But Joe Biden could be that figure. Who knows? We have no idea. Now, I can hear some of you laughing because you don't see that. I mean, 50 years of Joe Biden's record is anything but FDR. But people who are in power are shaped by the times, or they disregard the times. And I see, and I'm someone who's supported Bernie, and I've criticized Joe Biden many times. But I see in Joe Biden someone who can be pushed and shaped by the moment and by the movement. He can be. Certainly he can be. Donald Trump will not be. He's shown you that in 3.5 years. He only listens to one person, himself. But Joe Biden is someone who can be pushed. He will listen. So he says these things that make me cringe sometimes, but so what? Right? I mean, I don't like them. And I have an issue with some of the things he said, but my goodness, he's got policies that are going to be much more about improving the lives of people than the guy that's in there right now. Donald Trump does not ever talk about the American public. He does not talk about factory workers. And if he ever does, it's always tied back to something about him. He has absolute contempt for the people who support him. And he treats the office like a pig pen. And that clip that I played, which never gets played, by the way, on television. See, that clip was from Saturday, and they never once played it. That audio you just heard, not once was that played anywhere on the corporate news media. Nowhere. And if someone can tell me that they saw it in the media and can send the link of it, do so. But you won't be able to, because it wasn't there. You can go on my Twitter handle and watch it. I posted it on, I believe, Saturday or Sunday. The 29th, the 30th and 31st. 29th and 30th. One of those 2 days. Or you can go to Lincoln Project. Lincoln Project is the one that has that video that they captured on their Twitter page. They have that somewhere. So I think the choice is very, very clear. And for those who are on the fence, quote unquote, coming up next, I've got audio from somebody who will take you right off that fence. Next. Welcome back. The Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley is the senior pastor of the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia. And recently, during a sermon, he had some really important things to say about voting. Here we are now, 63 days away. Get your Pepto-Bismol ready. We're going to be needing it. We're going to be needing it. But Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley of the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia, gave a sermon recently. And I first heard this on Joe Madison's show. And I've told you that you've got to listen to Joe Madison, the Black Eagle. He can be heard on Sirius XM, which means you need to subscribe to it. It's not expensive, but for some people, it might be expensive. I think it's $20, $19. But for some people, that will be expensive, given everything that people are going through. But nonetheless, on Sirius XM, channel 126, the Black Eagle, part of the Urban View network on the Sirius XM channel 126, Joe Madison, the Black Eagle, played this audio, and he encouraged people to spread the audio, which I was going to do. I was definitely going to put, once I heard this is something that you need to hear, and you need to pass this around to people who won't vote. Remember I said a few minutes ago about those people who are, I'm a third party person. I'm going to write someone's name and, my state is going to vote this way anyhow, so I don't need to do that. Yeah, you need to do that. Every bloomin' vote for this electoral college is going to be critical. Every single one. Do not do that to yourself. This is a very different election. And Joe Biden is the peace candidate and the candidate who is trying to, I know you laugh at that because he voted for the Iraq war, but he is the candidate that is let me put it this way, the anti-chaos candidate. The candidate that wants to achieve a better, stronger America. That is the slogan, again, that he should be using. While Donald Trump is the guy that declares war on everyone and everything, including the country, the United States. That is what Donald Trump has done for 3.5 years. He has declared war on the United States. He has destabilized it. He is kissing Putin's backside. There's a new book that's just come out about this, Donald Trump versus the United States. I know I've just plugged it for Michael Schmidt of the New York Times. I'm sure he's very happy about that, if he's listening. But this is what's going on in this country. So the Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley of the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia, really gave a very important sermon. And at least what you're going to hear right now is roughly 7.5 minutes. So buckle up, strap yourselves in. This is about voting. What you're going to hear is something that you must hear and you need to hear and you must spread the word on, because this applies to you, or certainly to someone you know who's sitting there going, well, one of them's this, the other one's that, they're both the same, which they're not. And the system's this and the system's that. First of all, you've got to work to dismantle the system and change it within, or completely dismantle it, or run for office, or support progressive candidates who change the composition of that system and then push the system some more. That's how this gets done. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. There was once a time in this country, by the way, where we had Social Security that would, as I said earlier, was fully funded, that protected the general welfare, that people could actually retire on. They actually could retire on it. Now you cannot. It doesn't happen anymore. And now Donald Trump wants to get rid of it completely. And Medicare. So that when you need to have your costs taken care of by Medicare, it's all gone. Because this guy cut it. Which means you've got to participate. Which means voting for a third party or writing in someone's name ain't going to cut it. This is about your family's future. If you have a family, your kids and your kids' kids' futures. I'm going to get back to that. But you've got to listen to these next 7.5 minutes. Do not leave where you are. Listen to this from Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley.
This vote in November is not about the next 4 years. It's about the next 40 years. Let me take you back to Constitution and governance. The President of the United States has the authority to place men and women as judges all across the district courts, the appellate court, and the Supreme Court. This current president, in his 4 years, has appointed more judges than every other president except Jimmy Carter. In 4 years, President Donald Trump has appointed 198 judges to the bench, 2 to the Supreme Court, some 50 plus to appellate court, and the rest to district court. And many of those appointees will sit as justices of judgment for the rest of their lives. 198 judges have been appointed by this president. Do you know how many of those 198 appointees are black? Do you know how many of the 198 appointees of this president are of color? Of the 198 judges that this president has placed on the bench, not one of them is black. Not a single black face sitting as a judge under this president. 198 judges, and not one of them is black. Man, stop filming. 198 judges. 198 judges. And not one is black. So when you don't vote, you don't determine who stands at trial. When you don't vote, you don't get to sit in the jury and determine the fate of those in trial. When you don't vote, you don't get to help determine the judge that sits on the bench. So don't tell me you out here hollering Black Lives Matter if you don't vote. Black lives don't matter to you if you don't vote. Don't tell me you're mad that Daniel Cameron has not indicted the police officers who killed Breonna Taylor if you don't vote, because you ain't got nothing to do with it. How dare you not vote? When we don't vote, we dismiss ourselves from being part of leveling the playing field of justice in the United States of America. 198 judges, and not one is black. We've got to cultivate a vision. We've got to cast our vote. But y'all, we've got to challenge racism with our voices. With your voice, you can remind this nation that Black lives matter. With your voice, you can help point out systemic racism embedded in our nation, in our corporations, in our businesses, and in our communities. With your voice, you can make your coworker and your neighbor aware of both their unconscious and their blatant racial insensitivities. With your voice, you can challenge Karen and let her know that her temper tantrums based on the fragility of her white privilege are no longer acceptable. With your voice, you can demand police changing in your local communities. With your voice, you can have peaceful conversations that broaden and birth new opportunities in our homes, in our schools, in our communities. Beloved, I came by to tell you that God has created an atmosphere in this year that's given us an opportunity to raise our voices. George Floyd's death has opened American ears. Social media has exposed and embarrassed the racist hypocrisies of the United States of America. People are now paying the cost for their racial insensitivities and behavior. The atmosphere is fertile. America is listening. Real change is possible if we're willing to raise our voices. If you don't believe it, ask Sister Ednita Wright. I hope you know who that is. Ednita Wright was on work travel in Williamston, North Carolina with her 2 children. She was staying at a Hampton Inn and had her 2 children down at the pool with some other hotel guests. The white desk manager came out seeing this black woman with her 2 black children in the pool and asked for proof that they had the right to be there and said, and I quote, "Because people like you use the pool unauthorized." Sister Ednita understood that that was racism in her face, and she simply said, "Who are people like me?" The woman kept demanding for identification. Ednita simply showed her card and showed that it worked to gain access to the pool and said, "This is all I need to show you." The white desk worker did what Karens do, called the police. The police showed up, and the police did what police do, harassed the black woman at the word of the white woman. They demanded that Sister Ednita give proof of identification, and she, knowing her rights, said, "I'm not showing you identification. I have broken no laws." They then went to her car and ran her license plate, expecting to find a warrant because clearly all black people have warrants out for them. When they found that she had no warrant and found her name, they went back to the desk and found out not only was she a registered guest, but she had paid for 2 rooms in that hotel. Did she get a sorry? No. Did she get a "we made a mistake"? No. And in the past, it would have just been swept under the rug. But because we are in a fertile season where God has called us to use our voices, Sister Ednita had the good sense of mind to record the whole daggone thing. She posted it. It went viral. And Hilton, which owns Hampton, had to come out with a statement that they do not tolerate racism in any way. And they fired the desk manager on the spot because we have reached a place where our voices can help change our land.
Wow. That was Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley of the Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria, Virginia, in a recent sermon. The importance of voting. This is the one time where you get, in a general election, to have a huge say in who is going to be making the decisions about your life, in who is going to be at the table fighting or not fighting for you. You've got to participate in this. And I mean participate. And the Reverend just said that. You can't be talking about Black Lives Matter and then you are not making your life matter by failing to vote. You can't talk about Black Lives Matter and justice and then you're deciding to commit an injustice against yourself by not participating in the voting process. You can't talk about we need a future that is going to uplift and enrich the possibilities and our own lives and circumstances when you're not participating in the process and you leave that process to somebody else, like a Donald Trump, who has put in, as he pointed out, 198, it's actually now 200 federal judges, and included, of course, those 2 in the Supreme Court, which he has no right to, right, quite frankly, because of what Mitch McConnell did. Mitch McConnell blocked the living daylights out of President Obama when he was in office. And as the Reverend said there, he's put in 198, 200 federal court judges in just 3.5 years. Obama had only put in 8 years, just over 300 and I guess 330 judges. In 8 years. If you give Donald Trump another 4 years, he's going to have half of the federal court judges. And these are judges that are put on the bench in these federal courts that have a lot of power and jurisdiction over so many millions of people, and they have lifetime appointments. Donald Trump has put a quarter of the federal judges on the bench in his just 3.5 years. A quarter of those close to 800 judges are his judges. They are conservative. They are judges who are under the age of 50. Many of them are under the age of 40, which means that they are going to be sitting in judgment and making decisions on your lives and the things that affect your life and your kids' lives and your kids' kids' lives for the next 40 to 50 years. That is at least 2 generations, if not more. So people have to understand that not voting is you making a decision to allow other people to make decisions about your life for you. And as the Reverend pointed out, not one of those 200 judges are black. Not one of them. Not a single one. And, this is the thing that people, again, aren't looking at. And I like to look at these things with a perspective that is a bit more of an implication and a broader implication than just the narrow focus. Because look, here's the contrast. Last week at the RNC, what did he do? What did Trump do? Have all these black men on the stage talking. Speaker after speaker after speaker. every one of those 4 nights, there was at least 3 black men. It's all a show, and it's a reality show performance. The whole bloody thing was. Every single day of that convention, 3 or 4 black men speaking. And he's trying to get the black male vote. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to skim off 2-3% of that vote. Joe Biden, you better wake up and look. Shore up your ranks, sir, please. Shore up your ranks. I keep saying you've got to go after the Latinx vote. Go at it hard. You cannot allow Donald Trump to continue outspending you 10-1 in Latinx markets. Really? Your campaign's got to stop that from happening. I know you're focusing on the so-called swing states, or the key states, as I like to say. But you have got to spend money in these Latinx markets. You cannot ignore the Latino community. The Latinx community has got to be catered to with ads, with appearances. You've got to do that. Not just your surrogates, but you yourself. You have to make that connection. There are 40% of them right now are looking at Trump. You've got to get into the heart of that community and hire Chuck Rocha. Chuck Rocha was so important to Bernie Sanders with Latinx people because he absolutely crushed it in Nevada against you. I mean, you should know, right? In the primary, Bernie Sanders absolutely destroyed the field in Nevada in the primary. Yeah, I know Bernie's not the nominee, but he got 70+%, 70+% of the Latinx vote, the Latino vote in Nevada. And he went into California, did the same thing. He went into Texas and did pretty much the same thing. Chuck Rocha was the strategist. He's a Latino, and he is a strategist. He knows how to get turnout amongst the Latinx community, and this is going to come down to voter turnout. Please, to the Joe Biden campaign, you have got to hire Chuck Rocha. That brother knows what he is doing. He knows what has to be done. You have Latinx people all over the country. Tio Bernie. I think that means Uncle Bernie in Spanish. I think. But the point is that that's what Chuck Rocha did. And if he's not on your campaign, you'd better get him on there, Joe. Get him on your campaign. Talk to him. Please. Because I don't think that the people who are around you right now are doing enough around Latinx. Ben Jealous talked about it the other day. And I'm talking about it now. I've talked about it on Twitter as well. Tweeted the Biden campaign about this. You have got to start doing this now, right? 63 days. Please take some of those days and make the Latinx community feel welcomed, that you care about them. Talk to them, please, not at them. That's an important thing I wanted to just say. Bernie destroyed the field in Nevada. Why? Because of Chuck Rocha and the efforts of his strategy and the team around him to do these things. You are ignoring an asset here, Joe. To Joe's campaign folks, you are ignoring someone who really could help you. And I know he will help you. But you've got to call on him. And I think we all need to push Joe Biden on this. You want to talk about pushing somebody? Here's something you need to push him on. Bringing out the Latinx vote. This comes down to turnout, folks. People are pretty clear with a small subset of, small undecided group. People are pretty damn clear on who they're voting for. And no matter how small that undecided pool is, if some of those are Latinx voters, I think undecideds typically go for either the incumbent or the unpopular, like this guy, Donald Trump. So if Joe Biden wants to have a victory here, That is an out-of-sight victory. If he wants to win, he is going to have to do this. Whether his staffers and his strategists like it or not. His strategists are going to have to go this way. And Bernie destroyed Joe Biden in that Nevada primary. Joe Biden has got to start building a bridge to the Latinx community. And we know why it's been tough in the past, because we know what Barack Obama did. Deported more undocumented than any other president in history. And the guy who's in there now has absolute contempt for Latinx people. He said racist things about them. His immigration policy is hostile to them. Yet you still got around 40% of Latinx voting for him or interested in voting for him. So Joe Biden's campaign, hello. Si se puede. Yes, you can. Not yes, we can. Yes, you can. And you can reach out, and you must reach out to the Latinx community. This is the thing you must do. And also reach out to the youth. Because that's what Reverend Howard John Wesley, in the end, was talking about. The youngsters in the streets who must also vote. You must advocate and you must vote. We must continue to push Joe Biden, and we can vote for him. We need to be strategic voters. Sure, there's things that you may not like about someone, right? But that should not be the automatic end of things. Sure, there were things I didn't like about Hillary Clinton and what she said and what her husband's policies were, but her husband is not her. And she's darn sight more qualified than her husband is. And I voted for him twice. And I voted for Hillary Clinton. This is about strategy. This is about being strategic. And I know that voting is a very deeply personal and quite frankly emotional thing. It's deep. Some people vote for all kinds of reasons that are deep to them, right? Personal to them. It could be something, they could vote for something on a superficial level, but it's personal to them. You know, people do that. People vote for all kinds of reasons. Seriously, it could be as superficial as, well, this person looks this way or that person sounds better. People, you know, it's interesting. A lot of people, there is a certain group of people who do not vote on policy or issues. They don't. Some people do not vote on that. Maybe because they're very rich, or maybe not, or they're maybe just not informed. But voting cuts deep. It's a very personal thing. It's something that people vote on for all kinds of reasons. Some people will vote for the candidate that lies. Maybe they like that. Maybe they want a reality TV show, which is what they got. And how's that working out? 187,000 dead human beings later. But there are people who like that. There are people who like that. And it's sick and it's disgusting. And, ooh, this guy, ooh, yeah, this is so good. He's doing, yeah, there are people like that, lizard brains, who love that kind of thing. Which is all the more reason to pay heed to those very important words from Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley. You have got to get out there and vote. You've got these judges, as I was telling you, 200 federal judges in 3.5 years. And Mitch McConnell is the reason why. He blocked all of Obama's, pretty much in the 114th Congress, the final 2 years, I believe that was of Obama's 8 years. Mitch McConnell blocked him all the time. He couldn't get many of his judges onto the federal bench. And McConnell basically is violating he's violating the Constitution. But you know why? And you know what? Obviously power, obviously ideology, but you know what else? Elections have consequences. That is what Reverend Howard John Wesley in that audio is saying to you, elections have consequences. Failure to vote has consequences. Not showing up, not having a big enough voter turnout has consequences. These judges that Donald Trump has put on the bench, they're going to affect your lives. And if he gets another 4 years and there are more vacancies, he's going to stack them. And if you have a Senate that is in Republican hands, that will happen. Which is why you have to flip the Senate to the Democratic side. Democrats need to win 4 seats, a net gain of 4 seats in the Senate to start changing the shape of the federal judiciary. But to do that, you've also got to vote for Joe Biden. So to all these people out there, and there's not that many, but those few people out there, maybe 1 million people, maybe less, who are going on, or maybe more, I don't know, who are going on about, well, I'm disgusted with the system. And yes, so am I. But we have to be strategic about how we react to that. I dare say that you will care if you have a family, or even if you care about the future beyond yourself. You will not be talking about writing in anything this November when you've got this guy in the White House destroying the country. If you want to have a country, vote for Joe Biden. If you want to have these violent white men who are ISIS members, I mean, that's the ISIS. I talked about this before. That's ISIS. It's not these folks in the Middle East. The ISIS that we know are these violent white men who are terrorizing this country. FBI has talked about this. They're the most dangerous threat to this country. These racist, white, violent men. That's ISIS, folks. So if you want to have ISIS running around in your country, parading their Trump flags and firing pepper spray at you and all of the rest of it, then you know who to vote for. If you want a country where everybody is seen and where we can continue to push for change and for justice and to make sure that we continue to vote for progressive candidates, then you have to vote for Joe Biden. But voting for Kanye West or sitting on the sidelines, it doesn't cut it. When you have judges that Donald Trump has put in that will shape your life and shape the lives of your family members and their family members if they have kids, this is really important stuff. The U.S. Supreme Court right now is literally in conservative hands, and it's really one more judge away from making decisions on the Supreme Court that are going to overturn major precedent in this country, like a Roe v. Wade, like a Brown versus Board of Education, like a Griswold versus Connecticut, and so many more. If you want to have an America where all of these huge Supreme Court decisions are overturned, then you know who to vote for. If you want that kind of America where you are not going to have any kind of real freedom to do things autonomously, then you know who to vote for. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's 86 years old, 83 years old, whatever her age is, she's hanging on for dear bloomin' life right now. She's hanging on for life. She's waiting and hoping. Believe me, nobody in this country is, well, pretty much no one in this country is praying more for a Joe Biden victory this November than Ruth Bader Ginsburg is. Because I guarantee you, if Joe Biden wins this election, she's going to resign. She's going to retire. I'm telling you now, she's going to retire. Look at how many medical procedures she's had in the last 3 or 4 years. Look at how many. Listen, I mean, she's hanging on for dear life, bless her heart. And you need to help her out too, as well as yourself in the country. Vote for Joe Biden. Even if you are a Republican, vote for Joe Biden. Even if you're someone who disagrees, vote for him. He will be able to appoint Supreme Court judges, and you must vote for a Democratic Senate, because then you'll have a Democratic leader of the Senate, a majority leader of the Senate, and he or she will be able to give those justice appointments that you're picking. You'll get a hearing from them. They will do their constitutional duty, unlike Moscow Mitch, who didn't allow Merrick Garland a hearing. Merrick Garland is a Republican, and Obama picked him because he spoke to Orrin Hatch, a Republican who's now retired from the Senate, from Utah, and he recommended him. And Obama said, okay, I'll pick a Republican. And the fellow Republican, Mitch McConnell, didn't give Merrick Garland a hearing, violating the Constitution, his Article 1 responsibilities, in not doing so. So you need to vote for a Democratic Senate. You need to vote all the way down ballot Democratic. Because what you will know for sure about the Democrats is that they will actually get things done that will have a material effect on your life. And if you don't think they're doing a good enough job, you know what? You've got 5 Calls app. You've got your search engine. You can call these people. You can write to these people. You can lobby these folks. You can make an organization up dedicated to the issue that you want to see some movement on. You can contact people. You can volunteer for organization. You have to participate too. And that is the message from Reverend Howard John Wesley. Please vote. We are 63 days away. That is not a long time. This week I will have all the tools you need. I've laid out these previous episodes in which you can go back to in the archives, where I've talked every day for about 3.5 weeks about every single state and what its requirements are. And I'm going to put all of that, I'm in the process of putting that on to an electronic form, so you can get to see all of this. So that's coming. And you have to commit to vote, and you've got to tell your friends and family to do the same. Early vote. There's early voting in 40 states in this country. And some of that early voting begins as early as either later this week or after Labor Day next week here in the United States. There is too much at stake to write in a third party candidate or vote for one. It's time to vote. You've got 2 real choices. One of them is the one who has turned his back on you and has farmers ending their own lives and does trade deals with countries that backfire and make it worse for farmers, who wants to gut Obamacare and get rid of pre-existing conditions, who wants to gut and get rid of Social Security and Medicare, who has allowed 187,000 people to die, who turns his back on U.S. military, who he's supposed to be commander-in-chief of, who makes racist statements and doesn't show any kind of empathy or compassion for anyone but himself. Or you can vote for Joe Biden, who shows empathy and compassion, who has a vision for the country, who has a vision to preserve Social Security and Medicare and build on it and improve Obamacare and bring back the economy, which he's already helped to do with President Obama, and bring back jobs into the country and not just in one or two service sectors, in two sectors. I mean, the choice could not be more clear. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.